welcome to another Beltane episode. Today, I know my face is a little red, you can see it in here. The light's not great, but it did get a lot of sunshine yesterday, so I'm a little burnt. I'm a little toasty. But we're still gonna do this. So, we're talking about food this episode. So, Beltane, as you know, we've gone through the foods in the last episode. But here are some recipes that I like to personally have at my fingertips, sort of thing. I enjoy a good loaf. I enjoy some bread nowadays. Around this time, I usually do one for every Sabbath. So I do have a regular, standard, no-knead, easy one, and then I have a standard white bread one, and then I have a standard sourdough one, and we'll go through all of those today. So, if you are a sourdough girly and want to do a sourdough bread, great. If you are not a sourdough girly but want to start, we can go over the basics of the sourdough, the starter kind of thing. I have a starter. Now, it was given to me by a lovely friend because I couldn't start mine for some reason, but I have maintained it since I got it. And it is my favorite way to make bread. I will be making the no-knead recipe for Beltane. Maybe. Or I will be doing the no-knead with yeast. So we'll see which one I prefer. But if you're looking to make your sourdough now, not make a sourdough bread, we're doing the starting your sourdough on Beltane. That's gonna be a powerful sourdough starter, hopefully. And usually, it is going to be I think I started with a 1-to-1 ratio, and it depends on the flour that you want, but I've learned that bread flour for me is the best. So 1-to-1 bread flour to water, and then you will mix it together and feed it day by day. Once it is an established starter, though, you can put it in the fridge and only feed it when you're baking, which is what I currently do. So if you want to start your sourdough, do a 1-to-1, and it's usually every 12 hours that you want to feed that sourdough starter. And when you're feeding it originally, you do have to discard and add. Now, some recipes you don't, some recipes you do, so check out the recipe that you are using. But that, it is all up to you, whether you want to start a sourdough starter right now, or just do one of the other recipes. Now, talking about sourdough starters, we are going to first start with my no-knead sourdough recipe. Now, if you have a sourdough recipe that you like, you are an established sourdough maker, make that for today. I'm not saying you have to do this one. I'm saying this one is an easier one that you would like. This no-knead sourdough bread is my favorite. It's about 4 cups of flour, a 1.25 cups of water, a 1/2 cup of your sourdough starter, and about 1 3/4 teaspoon of kosher salt. Now, mind you, I do use 2 teaspoons because I find it not salty enough, but I would do this the way it says the first time rather than try to figure it out yourself. And there are many other recipes that are for easy sourdough starters. You can make them as you will. This one, you mix all the ingredients together. Actually, you mix the flour and the water together. Nope, sorry. You mix the starter and the water together, and at first make sure it's all melty in there, and then mix the rest of the ingredients in, and then leave it to rest for an hour. Yes, an hour at that time, and then an hour later, you're gonna kind of a stretch and fold 4 times. Once over the top, turn it a quarter of the way, over the top, turn it a quarter of the way, over the top, turn it a quarter of the way, over the top. And this is a nice one because you just leave it for 8 to 10 hours. So you can make this recipe at night the day before and then bake it the day of. Now, once those 8 to 10 hours are done, you do the folds again, an hour and a half. You wait. Now, I have noticed a few things. If you do an hour, the 8 to 10 hours, and you want to put it, say, in a loaf pan, do the extra hour and a half in the loaf tin in which you want to do to make. If you're just putting it in as a round thing, that's okay too. Now, mind you, if you wanted to start this and you don't have a Dutch oven or anything like that, if you have a roaster pan, that works. Or if you have 2 loaf pans, just put one on top of the other. That's the way I like to do it, so that we have kind of like a sandwichy bread type of situation. And then you bake it. Usually 450 oven, roughly. And then go from there. Now, if you're not a sourdough girly, I do have one for you. I actually have 2 for you. There is a No-Knead oven bread that I really, really like. And it is 3 1/4 cups of all-purpose flour. I don't really like this one because it goes in cups. You might like to stick with ones that go in grams. This one is 3 1/4 cups all-purpose flour, 1 to 1.5 teaspoons of salt. Now you're going to need active dry yeast in here, 1/2 teaspoon, and then 1 to 1.5 cups of water. You're going to have to measure this out because depending on the day, the humidity, a whole bunch of factors, this is going to differentiate. And I have made this without and with. Now it is delicious with, but if you're crunched on time and crunched on ingredients, you don't have to add it, but you can add 6 to 8 cloves of garlic, roughly chopped, and a tablespoon of dried rosemary. And that is just combining everything together except for the water. Stir the water in and stirring the water in slowly. Cover with a damp kitchen towel. Now I usually use like the shower caps from the dollar store. That's a really good way to use them too, or bowl covers from the dollar store. Use those. If all you have is a towel, just use the towel. It's all good. And then sit for, this one's an 8 to 24 hour recipe, and it will become bubbly. Dust the work surface, and then you're going to turn it out and let it rest for 30 minutes. This is a no-knead recipe, remember, so you're not going to have to knead this. And then you're going to put whatever vessel you want in the oven. Again, if you have a roaster pan, this is great. If you have a Dutch oven, this is great. You can also use one of those thin baking pans. You can put it in there, but first what you do is you take another thin baking pan and you boil some water, either on the stove or in a kettle if you have a kettle, and you make the steam. So you don't have to have a cover. You just put it in with the steam and it'll do the same effect. Cut an X or anything in the dough. If you have a bread lame, great. If not, just use a sharp knife. And you're going to preheat that up. I bake a lot of my breads at 450. So you're going to break that at 450. Bake for 30 minutes. And if you are using the uncovered version, uncover it and bake for 15 minutes. But if you're not, just do check at 30 minutes, I'm going to say. Let's see. Another recipe that I really, really like. I have it here. Or in my actual, it's in my actual notes here. So, another bread recipe that I really, really like is this white dough recipe. I don't remember where I got it from, But I use it often, and it is 240 milliliters of water, warmed. You can use milk as well, another 60 milliliters, but if you're just wanting to use the water, do a full 300. 7 grams of yeast, 25 grams of granulated sugar, 60 grams of unsalted butter, or it can be any fat. I usually use vegetable oil. You can use olive oil, lard, any kind of vegan substitutes. 6 grams of salt, and 406 grams of AP or bread flour. I use the all-purpose because we all have all-purpose flour in our house. So you're going to whisk together the water, milk, or water. Add the yeast and the sugar because the yeast feeds on the sugar. So you don't want to add the salt yet because that kills the yeast. You want to add the sugar. You allow it to sit for 5 minutes and add the butter, salt, and only 125 grams of the flour. Mix and add another 125 grams of the flour, and then mix until it's relatively incorporated into the whole thing. Add remaining flour, which is 156 grams. I'm not going to make you do the math. And mix until it comes away from the sides. Knead for about 3 minutes on a floured surface, and then add to a greased bowl and rise covered. Again, you can do this with a towel, or I usually use the caps from the dollar store, for 1 to 2 hours. Now, I do this differently depending on what kind of bread I'm making. So, if I'm usually making if I'm usually making a sandwich loaf, I cover for an hour, and then I knead again, and I cover for an hour. If it's just a regular loaf of bread that I'm not planning to make for sandwiches, you can do the 2 hours. Place the dough in a greased loaf pan and roll out with a rolling. You roll out with a rolling pin and then roll up the dough and put it in the loaf pan. And cover and allow to rise for another hour. Adjust the oven rack to the lowest rack, and then you're going to preheat the oven to 350 and bake it for 30 to 35 minutes or until they're golden brown on the top. And that's how you do the white dough. Another one that I really like to do this time of year, I don't really like soups or that kind of thing, heavy, not my time this year. So I like to do a non-mayo pasta salad, and it's any type of pasta, and it depends on what you have in the house, what you like. I tend to prefer a tortellini stuffed pasta, ravioli stuffed pasta, something like that. But sometimes I don't have that. So any type of pasta is fine. You'll need olive oil, oregano, salt and pepper, sweet peppers of any color depending on what you want, cucumber or any other veg. Cucumber, you can use carrots, anything like that. You can add anything to this pasta salad. I like to add chicken. If you're not a chicken person, you can add tuna, ham, anything like that. I've added shredded carrots before, and they've been really good, and you'll need feta cheese. So you're going to cook the pasta and let it cool, and in a separate dish, you're going to combine salt, pepper, oregano, and the olive oil. And you can do this in a different dish, or you can do it in the dish. You're just going to let this pasta sit in the mixture for at least an hour. Overnight is usually better. Combine the rest of the ingredients to the pasta, whatever you want to use. And there are no exacts in this recipe because the recipe is to taste. And it allows you to be as creative as you want without having a heavy-duty mayo pasta salad. last recipe I have for you, I'm not exactly going to discern a lot of the ingredients for because I never have. So, and I'm going to do an experiment. So these two separate recipes. One is my grandmother's pie recipe, and one of my is my grandmother's pastry for tarts recipe. And they are different recipes. They're not the same. I even looked and double checked. So we're gonna find that out this Beltane. And we are going to make lemon tarts with them. I love lemon tarts. But I think I've only ever done them with my grandmother's pie crust recipe, but she could have given me the recipe for her pastry for tarts recipe and had us do it that way. So we're going to find out which of these recipes that she actually used for tarts. But as general, they're pastry flour, some sort of fat, usually either lard or butter or shortening, and some sort of acid like vinegar or something like that, salt and sugar or water in some cases. Again, these two recipes are completely different. So we're going to do a little experiment this Beltane and see. But the lemon curd is generally basic. It's butter, lemon juice, lemon rinds. So what you do is you get a lemon, you zest the lemon rind, and then you get the juice out of it. Sugar and eggs. And then you do all the things. You melt the butter, you add the juice, and rind in the sugar, and you just cook until the sugar is dissolved. And then you cook the eggs with it until thick. It usually takes about 20 minutes, and then it'll cool. Now, this you can do in advance because it will make it, you can cool it in the oven, and then make the pastry later. So you can do this in advance, just saying. Anyway, those are all the recipes that I am going to partake in. Oh, no, that's a lie. So there are a couple more recipes that I have added to my registry this time. And I'm going to make some green beans. And they're just going to be some pepper, salt and pepper, some garlic, and fried in either olive oil or butter. I haven't decided. We'll go through that the day of. And add some bacon and things like that. And then my usual go-to now at this time of year are honey cakes, and I'm going to make some mead this time around. Now, honey cakes don't have to be extremely out there. You can do Beltane on a budget with dollar store ingredients, and that's going to be the next episode or one of these episodes. But those are the recipes that I'm doing this year. And I'm going to try to do a Bake With Me Day. It might be on the Facebook because of follower count there versus here. But we're going to do a make food along with me on Beltane kind of situation on live. So, or at least I'm going to try to. No promises. Anyway, that's all I have for you for this episode, which is I hope you have a wonderful week. And it is almost a week until Beltane. It's a week and a half, roughly, as I'm making this. So I'm going to try to get the next couple of episodes out in short succession. But other than that, I hope you have a wonderful week, witches, and look at us for all of our other socials. Bye!